house always felt steady, almost too quiet. I had built a routine around silence. Every morning I woke before the sun, made coffee, checked on the garden, and waited for the sound of footsteps upstairs. My daughter Leah, 21, usually slept late, her music often drifting faintly under her door. My son Aaron was different. He was 26, already carrying the heavy wings of responsibility as a commercial pilot. Before every flight, without fail, he would call me. It had become our ritual, my little anchor to know he was safe up there in the sky. Life seemed dependable, even if small things had begun to unsettle me. At night, I sometimes thought I heard whispers in the hallway, only to open the door and find nothing. A drawer would be left slightly open, though I was certain I had shut it. A picture frame leaned just a little too far, as if someone brushed past. I told myself it was nothing, the tricks of a tired mind, or maybe just Leah moving about quietly. I pushed those thoughts away, choosing the comfort of ordinary life over uneasy questions. Then, one evening, everything cracked. My phone rang, Aaron's name flashing across the screen. His voice was tight, almost broken by disbelief. "Mom," he said, breathless. "Impossible. She's on my flight. Leah is here in row 14. But she's supposed to be home, right?" I froze, the words hitting like ice. "What are you saying?" "She's upstairs." My heart raced as I hurried toward the staircase, my hands trembling on the railing. Aaron kept insisting, swearing he had just spoken to her. I reached Leah's bedroom. The door was locked, a faint glow slipping out from underneath. I knocked hard. "Leah?" No sound came back. The air pressed heavy around me, the kind that makes your chest tighten with fear. My hand shook as I turned the handle again, but it wouldn't budge. Silence. Only silence. Panic took over. I pushed against the door until it gave way. The room lay perfectly neat, almost staged. The bed was made, the pillows untouched. Her suitcase was gone. On the desk sat her phone, dark and abandoned. The emptiness screamed louder than any noise. My breath caught in my throat. If she was really on Aaron's flight, then who had been living in this room? And if she wasn't, who had he just seen in the sky? The chill of an answer I could not name crept into me. Something was wrong. Not just wrong, but impossible. When Aaron finally landed, his call came through the moment his phone touched the ground. His voice carried the same disbelief as before, but now it was steadier, almost sharp. "Mom, I'm telling you." It was Leah. She looked right at me. She even leaned over and whispered, "Don't tell Mom yet." The words cut me. Betrayal, sharp and hot, spread through me. Why would my daughter run? Why would she lie? Had she been planning this for weeks? The questions swarmed with no answers, leaving me restless through the night. The next morning, I stepped outside to get some air, and there she was, our neighbor, Mrs. Harrow, the type who always seemed to know too much. She gave me a long, slow look before speaking. "Strange thing, your Leah. I've seen her coming and going at odd hours. Not alone, either. With some man in a black coat." She tilted her head as if testing my reaction. I felt my stomach tighten. Leah never mentioned anyone. Never. Later, desperate for some trace of truth, I searched Leah's room again. Under her bed, wedged between dust and forgotten shoes, I found a small notebook. My hands shook as I flipped through it. It was her handwriting, no doubt, but pages had been torn out, leaving ragged edges like wounds. The few entries left behind were vague, restless, filled with half-thoughts. One line stopped me cold. "If Mom finds out, everything collapses." I sank onto the edge of the bed, gripping the diary as though it might explain itself. What secret was my daughter carrying that could collapse everything? A few days later, I went to a coffee shop just to breathe, to feel normal again. But as I stirred sugar into my cup, my heart nearly stopped. Across the room, I saw her, Leah, the tilt of her head, the way she brushed her hair back. It was her. I stood so fast my chair screeched against the floor. "Leah!" I called, my voice breaking. She looked up, eyes locking on mine. For a moment I thought she would come over. But instead she turned and melted into the crowd, gone before I reached the door. I stood frozen, staring at my own reflection in the glass, haunted by the thought that maybe I hadn't seen my daughter at all. Maybe I had seen her shadow, her double, the part of her I was never meant to know. Aaron didn't give up. A day after our last call, he sent me a message with a photo attached. When I opened it, my chest tightened. There was Leah seated in row 14 on his flight, smiling faintly at something beyond the frame. The image was stamped with date and time. Proof, unshakable proof. I set the phone down and looked around her room again. Her books were neatly stacked, her perfume still lingered in the air, and her phone remained on the desk like a discarded shell. Everything around me whispered of her presence. Yet the picture told me she was miles above the earth that very moment. Both things couldn't be true, but both were. The contradiction pressed against my skull until I felt dizzy. That night, I barely slept. In the morning, a hollow exhaustion carried me through the day. When the clock struck midnight, the house creaked in its usual way. I almost ignored it until a soft motion on the security monitor caught my eye. I leaned closer and my breath snagged. The camera showed a woman stepping into the driveway. She moved with the same posture, the same hair falling across her shoulders. It was Leah. She slipped up the porch steps as if she belonged, as if she lived here still, but she never knocked, never rang. She just disappeared from view, leaving the screen dark again. I rushed to the door, but the night air was empty, the driveway silent. I knew then this wasn't just my imagination playing tricks. There were two of her. The days that followed pushed me deeper into fear. In a desperate attempt for clarity, I went through the mail stacked on the counter. Buried under envelopes, I found statements with Leah's name on them. At first, I thought they were ordinary bills, but as I opened them, the numbers screamed at me. Hotel charges from cities she'd never mentioned. Plane tickets I hadn't known about. Even an offshore account, money moving in and out with precision I couldn't explain. My hands shook as the papers slid from my grip. Was my daughter living a secret life of wealth and deceit? Or had someone stolen her identity, twisted it, and turned her into a ghost that lived two lives at once? The more I searched, the less I understood. And yet one truth settled heavy inside me. Leah was no longer the girl I thought I knew. The morning began like any other until I opened my email. Among the usual clutter, one message froze me in place. It had no name, no subject line, only a few words typed in black. Ask your daughter about Project Albatross. I read it again and again, my pulse quickening. I searched online, desperate for any clue, but nothing ordinary came up. Only one fragment slipped through. Project Albatross was the name of a government aviation program, sealed behind closed doors, never spoken about openly. My breath grew shallow. What could Leah possibly have to do with something like that? That afternoon, fate cornered me. I was walking down a busy street when I saw her. Leah, or the one who looked like her, moving through the crowd as if no one else existed. This time I didn't hesitate. I followed until she stopped near a bookstore. "Leah!" I called, my voice breaking with hope and fury. She turned, her eyes meeting mine. They were the same eyes I had kissed goodnight for 21 years, but the expression behind them was colder, sharper, almost practiced. "You shouldn't be here," she said flatly. No warmth, no recognition. Before I could move closer, she slipped a ticket stub into my hand and vanished into the city, swallowed by strangers and neon lights. I looked down. The paper trembled in my fingers. A one-way ticket, Berlin. That night, I sat alone in the quiet, staring at the stub, and memories began to stir. My late husband's face surfaced. His careful eyes, his unfinished thoughts. He had been an engineer, brilliant but secretive. I remembered nights when he'd sit at his desk, drawings and equations scattered, whispering about projects he couldn't fully share. One name returned to me like a forgotten dream. Albatross. I pressed my palms into my temples, fighting the realization. Could Leah be tangled in the shadows of her father's work he never lived to finish? Or worse, was she paying the price for secrets he left behind? The silence of the house held no answers, only echoes of a man long gone, and a daughter I no longer understood. Days passed in restless silence until the front door creaked open one night. Leah stood there, her hair tangled, her clothes wrinkled as though she had walked through storms. She looked drained, her face pale, her eyes red with exhaustion. I ran to her, anger and relief twisting together in my chest. "Where have you been?" My voice cracked. She shook her head weakly. "Mom, I never left. Someone's framing me." Her words tumbled out quickly, desperate. "I don't know who, but they're making it look like I'm everywhere. I swear to you, I've been hiding, trying to figure it out." I wanted to believe her, every part of me aching to, but the photo from Aaron, the diary, the ticket stub, all of it pressed against me like evidence stacked too high. Could exhaustion explain everything, or was this only another mask, another story? Aaron wasn't convinced. The next day he brought up an idea that chilled me. "We need proof. A DNA test." He had gotten a hair sample from the girl he saw in Berlin, tucked carefully in a sealed bag. We sent both samples, one from Leah at home, one from the stranger abroad. When the results came back, the paper nearly slipped from my hands. Identical. The same DNA. No error. I stared at my children, speechless. My son's face was tight with disbelief. Leah looked stricken, tears catching in her eyes. "It's me," she whispered. "I'm me." But the science told a story that stretched beyond family. Something darker, deeper. The word cloning scraped across my thoughts. Or maybe a twin hidden away, raised in secrecy. Or worse, a government theft of identity. The truth became unbearable to chase alone, so I devised a plan. Using a fake email address, I reached out to both Leahs, weaving careful words that would lure them into the same place at the same time. I set the table as though preparing for an ordinary dinner. My heart pounded as the clock struck. The first Leah arrived, the one who had returned home exhausted, clinging to innocence. Minutes later, the door opened again. My breath left me. Another Leah stepped in, calm, sharp-eyed, carrying the air of someone who had lived another life entirely. And there they were, 2 daughters, 2 identical faces, both staring at me, both claiming with trembling voices, "I'm the real Leah." The air between them felt like glass, ready to shatter. And I stood frozen in the middle, a mother caught between 2 truths that could not live side by side. The dinner table turned into a battlefield. Aaron slammed his hands against the wood, his voice rising louder than I had ever heard. "Enough. One of you tell the truth right now." His eyes flicked between the 2 Leahs, his jaw locked tight with fury. The Leah who had returned home first, pale and worn, reached across the table. "Aaron, it's me. I'm your sister. She's the fake. She's the one pretending. She's the one tied to everything. The money, the secrets, the lies." The other Leah's eyes narrowed, her calm expression breaking into something sharper. "Don't believe her. She's the infiltrator. She's been using your name, your family, everything. I've been the one protecting Mom. She's the one who should answer for espionage, fraud, even murder." The word murder ripped through me like glass. I gripped the edge of the chair, my heart racing. My maternal instinct screamed to defend them both, but how could I? One of them was lying. Or maybe both were telling fragments of a twisted truth. I couldn't breathe as Aaron shouted again, "Which one of you is my sister?" Before anyone could answer, a loud knock rattled the front door. 3 sharp, commanding strikes that shook the house. I froze. When I opened the door, 2 men in dark suits stood there, their presence heavy and official. One held out a badge. "Ma'am, we need to speak with Leah." Both of them. The words pulled the floor out from under me. Both of them. They knew. They had expected this. Inside, the agents looked around with precise eyes, speaking calmly but firmly. "This goes back years," one of them explained. "Your late husband's work, Project Albatross, his designs are at the center of an international scandal. And now, your daughter, or daughters, are part of it." I wanted to scream that they were wrong, that Leah was innocent, but a hollow memory pressed against me. My husband, sitting late at his desk, speaking in whispers I wasn't meant to hear. The night he looked at me with eyes heavy as stone and said, "If anything happens to me, they'll come for her one day." After the agents left, I tore through the study where he used to work, searching his old journals. Pages filled with sketches, equations, half-written notes. My fingers traced the margins until I found something scratched faintly into the paper. Numbers. A sequence I recognized as a code. It matched a key taped beneath the drawer. My heart pounded as I held it in my palm. A safe deposit key. My husband had left something behind. Something hidden for years. The final piece waited in silence, locked away, daring me to uncover what truth he had tried to bury. The key felt heavier than metal in my hand. I carried it to the bank, my stomach twisting with every step. The clerk led me into a quiet room where the walls seemed to listen. When the box slid open, the air inside felt colder than the room itself. I pulled out blueprints, strange designs of wings and engines, notes scrawled in my husband's handwriting. Underneath, a small stack of forged IDs with Leah's name and picture stared back at me. But the last item stopped my breath. A faded photograph of 2 baby girls, wrapped in identical blankets, eyes wide open to a world that had already divided them. Tears blurred my vision. 2 babies, 2 daughters. My husband had kept this secret from me all these years. Leah had a twin. The memory of the second girl, the imposter, crashed into me with terrifying clarity. She wasn't fake. She wasn't pretending. She was Lena, Leah's sister, hidden from me, raised in shadows for reasons I couldn't yet understand. My husband had split them apart. One child raised in safety under my roof, the other watched, controlled, and used. When I returned home, the truth could no longer hide. I faced them both across the kitchen table, my hands trembling as I set the photograph between us. Leah gasped, her face pale. Lena only stared, her expression unreadable, as though she had always known. "You were both mine," I whispered, voice breaking. "Your father, he chose to keep you apart. He thought he was protecting you, but he tore us in 2. Leah's tears fell freely. "You knew nothing?" she asked. I shook my head, shame flooding me. "Nothing, I swear." Lena leaned forward, her voice steady, carrying years of pain. "I was raised under cameras, rules, shadows. I knew I had a sister out there who lived free. And I hated you for it. Both of you." The air thickened with grief and rage. 2 daughters, 2 truths, 2 wounds carved by one man's choice. Both demanded recognition. Both demanded love. And I, broken between them, realized nothing could ever return us to the life we had before. The days that followed were a blur of meetings, signatures, and questions asked in cold official rooms. Government agents circled around us like vultures, pressing the same truth again and again. Only one daughter could remain recognized. Only one identity could be legal. Leah. Lena had no place in their system. I sat across from them, my fists clenched under the table. You cannot erase her. You cannot erase half of my child's life. The men spoke with clipped precision. Ma'am, this is a matter of protocol. Protection can only be extended under one name. It is your choice, my choice. The words made me sick. A mother's heart is not made to divide, to slice one child away for the safety of another. When the day of reckoning came, it unfolded like a trial. We sat in a cold, wood-paneled room, an audience of silent officials staring down at us. Leah trembled beside me, her eyes full of fear. Lena sat straighter, her anger sharpened into steel. They both looked to me, waiting. I stood. My voice carried not with power, but with raw truth. You want me to choose one daughter. I will not. I will not bury Lena in silence, and I will not strip Leah of her life. If the cost is my home, my wealth, my reputation, take it. Burn it all. I refuse to lose either of them. A ripple of whispers spread through the room. The officials tried to object, but I laid the photograph of the 2 babies on the table. You hid this. You split them. You raised a child in shadows and called it protection. Well, I am finished with your cover-ups. Both of them are mine, and both will be seen. The decision shattered the careful lies they had built. In the days that followed, our name was dragged through the papers, our home seized, accounts frozen, but we were together, for the first time since their birth. Together. Weeks later, the sky cleared into a soft blue, the kind that stretches wide and endless. Leah and Lena stood side by side on the edge of the runway, no longer enemies, but sisters with scars they shared. Aaron's plane rolled across the tarmac, its wings flashing in the sunlight. The 3 of us watched as it lifted into the air, steady, unstoppable. I felt the wind brush my face, and for the first time, I understood. For years I thought my life was ordinary, but ordinary was only the mask hiding everything. Above us, the plane cut into the sky, leaving a silver trail behind, a mirror of what we had survived. Not perfect, not unbroken, but whole enough to move forward.